Just gonna start the recording. So, thanks for joining me, Colin. What we basically do is just kind of have a chat around what you do these days, share a bit around, kind of what led you here, which usually ends up being this kind of
Yeah.
fun adventure.
Yep.
Some of the key, looking back, I wish I had done this differently, or I wish more students would recognize the importance of this. And then some of the other things too we sometimes touch on, where do you see those opportunities to set yourself apart a little bit more?
Yep.
What are the other things that you could be doing that maybe don't instantly come to mind? Like we had a good chat with one of my supervisors the other week around the importance of the nicer and more inviting you make the space look. The more people walk in, like, okay,
Yep.
I can just be here rather
Yep.
than walking into chaos.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, yeah. Yep.
So, yeah,
Okay.
so just start off. What's your usual go-to drink? Your
Well, black
coffee or
coffee.
tea?
Yeah, it should be English breakfast tea, shouldn't it? And if we're talking tea, there's only one tea, and that's Yorkshire tea. But anyway, no, black coffee is my go-to.
Oh, perfect. We can be friends.
Yeah, it's allowed.
It's easy too.
Yeah. The problem is, though,
Oh,
isn't it? You come to Australia and you become for some reason, become a coffee snob.
oh man, I'm so picky now, especially because you don't have the milk to hide it. You're like, it's got to be good coffee because I'm just
Yeah,
drinking.
yeah. That never used to be an issue years ago, and now,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Because University of New England crew's quite picky too, so they're my go-tos with
Okay.
when we go to conferences.
Yep.
Just follow them.
Yep. Yeah,
So
you know Matthew Kozinski, don't you?
yeah,
Matt's he is the coffee guru.
excellent.
Any guidance, he knows everywhere.
These are good contacts to have.
He is.
You'll have at the like ASCO conferences. There's the coffee cart people, and then those of us that sneak out on the breaks to to go somewhere.
Correct.
Oh, all right. So tell me a bit about what you do these days. I
These
think it's
days
a few things.
at the University of Newcastle.
So,
Yep. I guess my main role is I lead the applied practice with the undergraduate students, and specifically even in the third year, where I lead the placement modules and opportunities and engagement across into industry. So that's my main role within the university at Newcastle, and I've been here now 5 years, and over that time we've developed from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 a better path, well, hopefully a better pathway for students to set them up for when they leave as career ready graduates and go into the workplace. We've tried to sort of scaffold through. So that's been my role for the last 5 years from an academic sense.
5 years already. Wow, cool.
I know. I also I'm the elected staff member on the new sports board. And new sports like the commercial arm of the university. So I sit on their board, which is good. And then about a year ago, the University of Newcastle recognised they needed a almost catch-all organisation or entity, because across the whole of, as you all know, across the whole of the university landscape, sport is always an exercise, are always not sexy pieces, but the words that people like resonate with. And then you've got people in engineering who do work in sport or in physio or in OT. Anyway, we've now, or the university through a gentleman called Professor Dave Lubens, has set up the Global Sport and Movement Collaborative, which is a university-wide initiative. So Dave is the director of that, and I sit on that. I'm Dave's engagement and partnerships lead, which probably lends itself to my background and my work I do in sports science. So I seem to have developed a bit of bridge building skills these days, which is good. So yeah, three sort of roles within the University of Newcastle.
That's fantastic. What other programs or faculties do you really see, there's collaboration opportunities in the sports space on offer and growing? And
yeah, I mean, the the physiotherapy is obviously engaged a fair bit with sport, excuse me. So there's a growing link into physiotherapy. We have a number of our undergraduate students who are doing sports science, who then look to transfer, or not transfer, move into physiotherapy either during their sports science degree or post their sports science degree. So through our sports science and industry connections, you know, various teams, organizations will constantly reach out and have you got a sports trainer, have you got a physio? So we've developed quite the network to allow these opportunities, these real life opportunities for students, which is great, because that gets them their foot in the door, and it also gives them a sample of what the industry might be like if they do go down that route. And the other one is education. We have good collaborations with education. Ironically, I'm involved in a couple of initiatives with the School of Education, and well, that's where I first came in contact with Dave Lubens, ironically. But another guy, Nick Riley, another lady, Naralitha. I've done initiatives around engaging applied practice, but in an educational sense. So we've run initiatives for high school students around understanding movement, but put mathematical concepts around it. So educated the kids in maths, but while using, say, rugby league as the vehicle to bring that to fruition. So we've done that through in conjunction with Newcastle Knights for 5 years.
Wow.
And also same with the Central Coast Mariners. And we've gone out and used the sport as a vehicle to look at speed or to look at attendances and look at ratios or game stats. So using like a rotational, I don't want to give too much away here. Kind of approach to it, you know, allowing students to sample these different questions, which we rotate them round, but in that authentic setting. And that links really well with education, obviously. We can also link our sports science students into that, but more importantly, education students who are going to go and teach, they can use that. We've now got it set where they actually get assessed on their delivery in that forum. So genuine collaborations with education, and genuine collaborations with physiotherapy, that they're sort of growing all the time.
Fantastic. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, I think anything that's applied and engaging, that's me written all over it. That's what I like.
Nice. I'll just cycle back to the sports trainer considerations. That's, you know, something that we get a lot of requests for, we'll say. Do you find or observe much difference in the students that do take up those opportunities and that kind of, you know, say yes, even if it's not always their full placement, or it might be a little bit extra volunteer or things, versus the students that want to work in sport but might not realize they should start working in sport ASAP?
I think, well, I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but I think back to my time when I was working in sport, and at different times you might advertise roles or you just receive resumes and cover letters just at random, which was always fine, and I would always reply as well. But when you looked at those, you were always looking to see. I wanted to know if they've got a degree or some academic qualification, but I was then more interested to know what applied practice that they'd been involved with. So had they gone out and spent time working with a team, what that team was, where that team, how long they'd done it for, because the authentic opportunities and engagement in applied practice are what sets you apart. Because if you can't talk and relate to people, all the qualifications in the world are not going to help you. So making sure not students take up every opportunity that comes along, but certainly making them aware of where it might benefit them. And also, you know, that you don't need to go to a nice shiny organization. The best ones to go to where it's a little bit more basic and robust, because you get better at finding solutions to problems that you're faced with. And you've got to start thinking a little bit more, and the answer might not be right there in front of you. You've actually got to be a little bit proactive. And I think you can't teach that. those sorts of skills. They're innate to a degree. And I suppose I've got to be careful how I say the next piece. There's probably a change in the way students are coming through from high school into university, and you know, you're not going to become head of high performance in your first role just out of university because you went and did a master's in high performance at ACU, for example. You need to have experienced and gone through that authentic journey, taking the rough with the smooth as you've gone along, because you need to know it's all well and good when it works well. It's when it's not working well. That's what you want to experience. And you want to make your mistakes along the way and have the opportunity to do that. So that's why those taking opportunities when they come along, even if it might not be quite what you're looking for, is really important.
That's such a good point, because like I can't remember a student that I've had that said yes to one of those opportunities that didn't come back and be like, I got nothing out of that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even if they've gone and thought, oh, I don't really want to be at community level footy, I don't really like the game. Like, well,
yeah.
Or you'll have clubs like, hey, we want a strength conditioning coach. Like, okay, great. What facilities do you have? Oh, we've got the field and some benches. Okay, perfect. We can
that's what you want. And that's exactly what I want. I was chatting to someone the other day, ironically, and I'll sound like I'm picking on soccer now, but I'm not directly. But if you go to an elite soccer environment, you'll see all the balls laid out neatly. You'll see all the bibs laid out pristinely. And it's almost the more interesting what it looks like as opposed to what's then delivered. And I was sort of chatting to this coach, said, do you know what you should do? I said, you should just take 4 markers to your session and 2 balls. And that's all you've got. And then you just go off the back of that. If you have all these answers, not all the answers, but if you've got, you're almost trying to think too far ahead. A sporting setting or a training session doesn't need to be this fluid and environment where nothing can go wrong. You want things to break down, because when things break down, that's how you learn and get better. It's so important to find the right environment and not be put off by somewhere that might not have all the resources or might not be well resourced and looks a little bit basic. That's exactly where you want to start.
It's such a good point. I know you guys do a little bit of telehealth stuff too, but you know, we've just brought one into our 2nd year. And I think for me, it's the first time I've really see the students like properly learning and just having to, oh crap, what do we do with, you know, this person is in their bedroom, they've got, you know, this much space to exercise in, and they've got a wheelie chair. Whereas, you know, do you have free weights I can use? Do you have, you know, it's that they go through the list of equipment, and then it's something like, oh, you literally have your bed in your chair. Right. So I think it's, you know, and that's something definitely, obviously, working in community sport brings you is, okay, well, here's our clubhouse, which is also our locker room, which is also our gym, which is also our training room. And
but that's where you get your best results. Because you have to think, you have to be creative, you have to be dynamic, and not, if it doesn't work out exactly how you want it to work out, well, half the time people don't realize because they don't know what you're thinking. And as long as you don't say, oh, I was going to do this, this, and this, they're none the wiser. So you can, in your mind, you're going, oh my God, that was a disaster. It should have done this. If you can just carry that off and come across in a professional manner, it will have seemed like a seamless session. Underneath, you might have been like, oh, damn, that should have done this. Doesn't matter.
The art of university teaching.
Well, they only know what you tell them.
Oh, it's so good. But so I guess just kind of on that, you know, what's your journey been through the adventures of sport and exercise?
Oh, eclectic. Eclectic, I think is the word.
Did you study in this space when you first started, or had hopes and dreams of ending up in Australia?
No interest in coming to Australia. No interest in working in sports science or going to university.
Wow.
How about that?
How good.
No, I'm not a good example of you. You just don't know where your path's going to take you. I did it in the UK at the time, obviously tell by the accent. I did my what was called term day levels, and then I had no interest in going to university. So I actually went to work for Barclays Bank in the UK. So I spent 8 years working at Barclays Bank in the UK, where I finished up sort of, they call it a first cashier, overseeing the high street counter and or counters and so forth. But you look at things that you pick up from that. So one, you learn about budget, you learn about finance.
Mhm.
That was also my growing up period. I wasn't ready for you anyway. So that you generally grew up, but I also developed being able to work and manage people in a team environment. I also hugely developed my communication skills. So I was, by default, you asking me to do this, this is not my first choice of things to do. I'd happily just sit there and say nothing and just listen and watch. But being at Barclays, you've got customers coming through the door with questions, with queries, and you've got to answer them. So I developed that. So anyway, I'm 7 years into my career at Barclays, and I can still, these names will mean nothing to you now, but there's a guy called John Rain who used to work in deceased estates, and he was a really nice fella. And I remember looking at him one day and going, I do not want to be sat here in 20, 30 years time doing deceased estates or something like that. It just seems so sad. And I was like, do you know what? I was involved in sport. I played sport at the rugby league and cricket at the time. And I was always there, and I was doing my coaching bits and pieces behind the scenes. And this notion of going to university as a mature student became a possibility. So I did a year of what they call in the UK night school. So I did a year of study there to prove I could study again. Took another A-level in psychology, ironically, at the time, and then went to university. And my driver to when I went to university to study sports science, oh no, to study at the time, physical education and management studies, because sports science wasn't quite where it was. But sports science was within, ironically, the physical education piece.
Oh.
It was three distinct, so physiology, psych, and biomechanics were within the phys ed curriculum at the university. And my drive was to go through that and then to go and be a PE teacher. That was it. Okay. So I did my degree, working through, and my head of school was a gentleman called Professor Andy Smith. And at the time, he was the chairman of BASES in the UK. So he was one of the smartest people I think I've ever met, to be fair. And I don't say that like he was just so, I think he had a photographic memory. Anyway, but Andy was working for BASES. He was well across that environment. He was writing white papers on health for the government. But he'd also been asked to chair and to lead a new entity in the UK that linked with England and Wales Cricket Board, called the ECB, Cricket Fitness Advisory Group. Anyway, this is, I'm in my third year. I'm gonna go and become a PE teacher, blah blah blah. But I've done my sports science. I've always taken those strands, and my undergrad dissertation was in the biomechanics of bowling, ironically, and looking at an interdisciplinary approach to bowling and so forth. And he said to me, he said, "Oh, you should come. I'm going to a conference at Loughborough. You should come with me. You like that? You like this?" So I go to Loughborough. We go to this conference. I met two people there. One I still keep in contact to this day. A guy called Dean Riddle, a New Zealander, who at the time was the head of fitness for England cricket. Anyway, but also I got introduced to this physio, Nigel Kent. Nigel was the physio at Durham County Cricket Club. And we were just chatting away. I said, "Oh, you should come up. We've got a physiologist who does some work with us, a guy called Nick Ward, who I still chat with to this day." And so I went, "Oh yeah, I'll do that." So I ended up going up to Durham. I ended up then working for the University of Durham with Nick, and I was doing S&C work for them with Hartlepool United, with Newcastle United Academy, and also Durham County Cricket Club. And so from going from Barclays Bank to go and be a teacher to not getting that far because you've got sidetracked. I then spent 25 years working in professional sport.
Wow. How amazing.
So yeah, blessed. So to finish that story, I also did my PhD when I was at Durham, based in the cricket environment.
Wow.
So I had 7 years with Durham, with the likes of, these names will mean nothing to some, I'm sure, but Paul Collingwood and Steve Harmison, Mike Hussey, Mr. Cricket, Shoaib Akhtar, Martin Love, Jimmy Mayer, trying to think of the Aussies we had, Marcus North, ironically just been appointed as an ECB head of selectors. I think I see that's been quite a contentious piece back in the UK. But Mark, yeah. So I spent 7 years at Durham, and it was
Wow.
I loved it. I loved it. I was also at the same time because it wasn't full time in cricket at that moment. It was a part-time role. I was lecturing. I was doing my PhD. I was working with Durham, and I also, in my last sort of few years of my PhD, I'd started doing some work with a rugby league team called York City Knights, who are the level below Super League in the UK.
Wow.
And so I've got these 4 roles, all complement each other. And then I finished the PhD, and I got to a point where I had the chance to then go into Super League, which is the professional level in the UK. It was a chance to just have one job. And that we'd just had our son at the time, and it just seemed like a sensible way to go. So I then went into Super League with Wakefield Trinity I had 5 years with Wakefield, and that was great. I've been so blessed to have worked in some really great people and good environments. And so I had 5 years at Wakefield. And then how do you come to Australia? Exactly. So I'd been on holiday a couple of times, and then I got a call out of the blue from a guy I knew who called Jeremy Hickmans, and Jeremy said, "Oh look, we're heading to the Knights. Wayne's going to be coaching. Would you come and set up a high performance unit for us at the Knights, so from pathways through to the NRL?" So that's, spoke to my wife. What do you think? We just had literally just had our second child as well at that point, and we went, you know what, let's go. So in 2011, left Wakefield, left Durham in 2006, went to Wakefield, left Wakefield in October 2011, and then came out here in November 2011 to work for the Knights. Had 5-6 years at the Knights. Think of, oh gosh, so many players have gone through there. Trying to think of the numbers we had going through from an NRL. I did the stats not long since, because I was always interested on the conversion rate we had. And working with at the time a coach called Graham Murray, and then another gentleman called Troy Pezzett, we would have had 116 players come through our high performance unit, and out of that we had 1 in 4 went on to play NRL. So
wow.
I'm trying to think of your Josh Kings. I'm trying to think of the ones who are there still. Your Josh Kings of this world, Connor Watson, Tavita Pengai, Lachlan Fitzgibbon, Jack Cogger, Danny Levi. There's just, I know I've missed out loads, but we had that 1 in 4 conversion, which was great.
That's amazing.
Then got to a point where I had the chance to then go to New South Wales Rugby League, and I went across there and spent 3 years heading up pathways, the player development and performance for the state of origin pathways for the male and females. So effectively, it was everything, but Brad Fittler's obviously origin group, it was everything but that. But yeah, so ironically, look back, I was looking at some photos of the day. The last under 20s team that we had through had the likes of Stephen Crichton, Spencer Leno, Matt Burton and so forth in there. It was quite the team. So you kind of look back and go, wow, how did that
Where am I?
kind of happen? But I mean, in all the different roles, you think of what you've done and the different things you've done within those roles, from talent ID to player development to S&C to sport, developing collaborations with academia and universities. And so, yeah, that then brought me just after COVID to the University of Newcastle.
How exciting.
There you go.
Love it. Hey. I guess with those different roles, one thing I find, and you probably see this too, is often students get so focused on how to write a program and how to coach a squat and how to, this technical skill. What did you really see as some of those strengths that probably helped you adjust and adapt to each role that might not have been as technical as we sometimes get hyper focused on? Obviously, the connections and colleagues you had was.
Yeah. I think as you go through, you just learn from different people in different ways, and you learn from the different environments. And I think one of the things that I was blessed with was the fact I worked in lots of different environments, because they're all different. But you took those transferable skills, you took those learnings from each environment. So yeah, cricket's not like rugby league, and soccer's not like cricket. And cricket, it's just so they're all, they're all different in different ways. And recognizing that there are learnings at each opportunity that are going to help and support you are key. But the one thing that I did, I'm still big on to this day. I'm not process driven, but you've got to be objective, and that's the one thing I always took from sport, is you've got to be super objective in whatever you do. So if you're having a conversation with a coach, you've got to say what your thoughts are, but not just from an emotional perspective. It's got to be based on information, so data of some description. Likewise, if you're working with or you've got a parent who wants to know why their son or daughter's not being selected, again, you've got to be objective. So I was a big believer in almost developing a model and an approach. So in conjunction with Andy Smith, and we did this years ago when we were linked into BASES, a 7-stepped approach to what's key for the sport, what's key for the individual, where are they at, how do you assess them, what program are you going to put in place, monitor that intervention, evaluate, and then go back around again. So having that mindset and that approach of that cyclical approach, it didn't matter where you then go or what you're then looking to do, but printing that on top of the environment for me is key, because it then stops you becoming hyper focused on, I don't mean irrelevant detail, but too focused on certain areas. You're looking from a broader perspective. And I suppose there's one, it's ironic, I'm thinking not around this at the moment, but when I started out way back when in the early 2000s with Andy Smith, we did a lot of work around interdisciplinarity. You then come through, and as I think the time at the Knights in particular, where there was more definite specialisms, and I don't mean silos, but you got a strength coach, a speed coach, a skills, a your data scientist, your sports scientist. And so you come from an environment where you've effectively, I think, time at Durham and time at Wakefield, you were just doing that all yourself, and you were finding solutions to make that work. So you were applying an interdisciplinary approach to make it work. I then look at now where students are and as they come through, and they're not saying they're all siloed, but they all look for this little niche. And I do think if you've got that little area, you'll drill down too hard, and you need the bigger picture. And I look at where I am now, and I go, one of my strengths is understanding, or I think, what that bigger picture looks like or could look like, and where it's connected or not connected, how you can pull it back together. I think that's one of the key elements that students are, to avoid that. Oh, well, the squat's not perfect. Well, does it need to be perfect?
Why are they squatting?
Why are they squatting in the first place? Someone was asking me the other day about 1RMs, and I said, I've never ever done a 1RM with anyone. I've got no. I said the only time I do it, I said if I was working with an Olympic weightlifter, absolutely.
They have no choice.
They've got no
Their
choice. There's yes. In any other sports, I'm never ever going to go there. So recognizing what's important, and that goes back to that 7-step approach. What is truly important from the sport that needs analysis? What do you need to do? But also, what don't you need to do? And then you've objectified what you're doing, but what you're not as well.
Oh, I like that.
There you go.
Can't remember that one. So, and it's such a good point to find, that I'll get to 3rd year and I want to go here and do this replacement. I'm like, yeah, but you haven't tried any of this other stuff. You kind of, what that's like, or, oh, I work here. Can I do placement there? Like, no, because you kind of, you have a foundation in that. So
yeah,
just try other stuff. And sometimes you get there, like, I don't ever want to do this. Like, perfect. One thing off your list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
cardiac rehab. It's like, no, this sucks. I'm out. But in my head, it was going to be awesome. So I'm glad I did it for placement rather than a
not quite.
job.
Yeah, not quite.
So with I guess with sport, we're seeing quite a evolving landscape with tech, but also, like you said, there's more and more like specialty positions of you're not just a sports scientist anymore. You're a data analyst, or you're a performance analyst, or you're the video analysis. And where do you see, I guess, some of those future opportunities, or those kind of things that have really remained through it all?
Everyone loves data.
Mm.
Everyone loves a number, and everyone likes to make it as simple as possible. And there's 2 parts to that. Well, firstly, sport isn't simple.
Mm.
There's just too much going on, and we try and put this neat, tidy bow on a sporting performance of why an outcome's happened. Oh, it's because they reported a wellness score of this on Thursday, or they're
whoop bands.
Oh, there's just there is just so much information that comes in, and keeping that in context is really important, because yes, there are opportunities for students, and there will be increasing opportunities for students around the data and the data analysis. But recognizing that sometimes that your one piece of information isn't the key piece of information, and you don't hold the golden key. Recognizing in that bigger picture perspective, it maybe fits in. I liken it to a clock face before. I've had this conversation previously around, you look at a team, you look at the dynamics, and you think of them as cogs in the wheel. And sometimes you look at the cogs and they all look shiny and great and so forth. But some of them are just spinning independently and just doing nothing, but they're just spinning and looking busy. If there's not that connection, they don't work together, and the team then doesn't work together. And it doesn't matter what information that you think is key, it's never going to get read. It's never going to get seen. So I think if the data's not going away, so that's one. I think back to GPS, I look at where the GPS now is. I think I am getting a bit older. When I started, there was no GPS. And so you were looking at the game metrics and the work within the game. And you talk about people that you meet at different times. Another guy was a gentleman called Professor Bill Gerard. He's from the University of Leeds. That business background, I think banking interest rates background at the University of Leeds as a prof. His interest was working in sports analytics. So he was way back when working, I think, with Parramatta Eels. He's a Scot, but he was working with Brian Smith at Parramatta Eels, and then he was doing something else. He worked with Billy Bean around the Moneyball. He's worked with Andy Farrell from time at I mean, like, again, just so smart. But you suddenly become aware how you can use that information. How Bill can use information around a game scenario and what an outcome might be and why that might have happened, just based on numbers and the type of pass or the type of game instance that's happened, pass, miss, tackle, line out, you name it. You sort of start to see how someone can unpack all that information without using GPS. Because the key part is GPS gives us some neat tidy numbers, which are great, gives us some insight into the intent and intensity of an effort someone might have put in a certain situation, but it doesn't record the outcome. And sport's outcome driven.
It's such a good point, because
you either make an appropriate action or an inappropriate action.
You just did them both fast.
And depending which one you do, that's the outcome. We could then talk about the learning experience to get you better, and we could talk about, coaching and feedback as well. But understanding where that decision links into the GPS numbers is key. And I know there's a lot of work happening around that, but there's been no sort of actual example yet where it's been shown to work in unison, I don't think. But that'll be the next point for a student coming through, and for that point of difference and for opportunities, I would suggest.
Makes me think back to when I was at uni. I was like the statistician for our lacrosse team, and you literally sat there in the booth and just did little tallies of goal, no goal, shot on goal. But it was about the outcome. Like it didn't matter how they got there. They got there.
But how does AI now? How can AI now be used for that recognition of players, for that sequence like you just talked about? So when Jenna passes the ball to Colin, what's the outcome? Or when these two combine, this is the outcome. So you start to then look at the skill between players in different scenarios.
It's going to be an exciting place. It's interesting because we're trying to, obviously, as unis, find the balance of integrating an AI, but then worried everything's going to cheat with AI. And I find so many of our students are just resistant to using it, or overwhelmed, or like mistrusting. And then there's the ones that are just all in. So it's such an interesting balance of, okay, don't fight this thing. Like, how can we use it to actually make ourselves stronger and better, and go to that next level? And whether it's writing your programs, you still have to coach them. Like, you still have to know it's a good program.
But I think part of that is that you see, even at university level, we're all keen to develop and use AI better. I might be wrong when I say this next piece, but in fairness, we're probably at the same point as everybody else. We've just got exposed to it at the same time as everyone else has got exposed to it. So we're learning it just as much as the students are. There's this perception that, you should know how to use it. No, literally, it's just become this.
Twice weekly workshops are not helping.
And that's so here we go. Bigger picture, making me think now. I remember when I was working with across the state of origin, and I was across all those pathways, we had a wealth of data coming in. So we set up some talent ID matrices across New South Wales, linked to scouts, linked to feedback. There was other information coming from clubs as well. And it was, just information overload. And I was chatting with Dean Riddle, I mentioned before. And by this time, he should be a separate one you should chat with. But he'd just done 6 years with Seattle Seahawks as their sports scientist. And I'm chatting with Dean, and what my quandary is, and I said, I don't know what we'd do with this, because we were using Smartbase at the time, which was cool. And he said, you should chat with Microsoft. I'm not going to chat with Microsoft. I said, the
Word document.
He said, no, we'll just have a chat with Microsoft. He says, I'll link you in with them, because they're involved with the Seahawks. So in the next week, I've got an email from from Microsoft in America linking me into their equivalent in Australia. And these two guys were working in Ryde, which was literally around the corner from Olympic Park. Anyway, we met up down at New South Wales Rugby League, and these two guys came down from Microsoft, and this was just before COVID. So this wasn't around at the time. But anyway, so we're having this conversation, I'm like panicking, showing them all this information. This is what I'm faced with. Oh, is that it? Is that all? Is that all that's there? I was like, yeah. That's north. that's nothing. We can look at this. And you lend on, you go to expertise with other people. So you've got to be prepared to open yourself up and go, there's Jenna, there's smarter people, believe it or not, than you and I. I can't believe it, but there are. But there are smarter people out there, and you've got to be prepared to show them what you've got, show where you don't understand or what you don't understand. And that for students, but that's fine. Recognizing where your limits are and where your failings might be, you've got to embrace that and address that. So anyway, brought these guys in, and we got to the point where they were going to start to help redesign and redevelop the whole thing, because it was easy for them because we're just numbers. And then we had COVID, and then that unfortunately all finished. But it's recognizing where you sometimes need to go to external experts to get the insights, to get the information you need. The answers a lot of time in sport will not be in sport. Will not be in sport.
And I think, like you mentioned, the kind of university-wide recognition that sport sits outside of sport is kind of key to that. We go to some of these research presentations and this, and you hear someone from engineering talking about, this thing they built. I'm like, why are we not working together? Like,
correct.
Hold on.
Correct. Oh,
that's what I just spent 12 weeks doing, and you've done it in an hour. Like,
exactly. It's just
shots on goal.
Well, we've got at the university now, the link with New South Wales and Swiss and New Sport and the universities. We've got a elite swim hub. Head coach Dr. Sonder Gonzalez, like unbelievable coach, like super switched on.
Nice.
I think he's just now got one swimmer just verging the national squad, the Aussie squad. So he's from nothing. It's not nothing. It's been developed over a couple of years. Anyway, we were chatting away, and he was showing me the technology he developed through his PhD he'd done, looking at swimming and force and so forth, and how he assessed that with the swimmers. And he was showing me all the data he'd got, and it'd be good to get some collaborations around that. And I just happened to be chatting with someone I knew at the university who worked in knowledge and enterprise, and she said, "Oh, you need to chat with a gentleman called Mark Adam. Mark Adam, sorry." I'm like, "Oh, who is he?" So yeah, he loves swimming.
Okay.
Okay, so I reach out to Mark, thinking, he's just lecture, Anyway, this guy comes back. He's head of computer science at the university. And we meet up down the pool deck with Sonder, Mark, and myself. He's a German background. He's Mark, so very data process driven and very very well thought out. And anyway, but he loved swimming and he loved data, and Sonder's he's loving it because he's chatting with Sonder and they're talking swimming and everything's swimming. But suddenly you've then got collaboration from computer science into this huge swimming database that Sonder had been developing. And then off the back of that, we then had, well, careful what I now say, but we then started to look at some work around rugby league and exploring AI for recognition of when a defensive line was formed and how you could get within a couple of days. Mark had obviously no background in rugby league and he's PhD student as well. We shared some footage with them and they just came up with this real rough piece that it could be. And you're like, wow. How do you come? And so there is so much opportunity by genuine collaboration. And sometimes you never know who that collaboration can be with. And it's through communicating and reaching out and being bold enough to reach out at times and ask some questions where if someone says no, well, that's fine. That's okay. The world's not ending. But if you don't ask the question, you never know anyway.
Yeah. It's such a good, and I think it's one of those things looking back, I wish I'd gone to more conferences and gone to more, events outside of my specific interest area going through. Like when I was doing my PhD, everything was an oncology conference because I was working in oncology and that's what I should have done. And then a few weeks ago, I got dragged along to the Royal Australian New Zealand College of Psychiatrists.
Yep.
Like, and it was just fascinating hearing
Yep.
the fusion of physical activity in that space, and
Yep.
the need for collaboration, but them being able to bring, this is why exercise is paramount for our patients. Like, oh, you've never thought of it from that way, and kind of had that exposure. And
I think sometimes you can have the best, but you can have the best ideas. Like you could have the best ideas, but the reality might be that you're not the right person to drive it forward. And you need that collaborator or collaborators to then bring it to fruition. You've got that, you know what it needs to do, but either your delivery or your engagement, whatever it might be, or your ability to access that environment might not be there. And that's where that link and collaboration, say with the Knights, with the education piece, where we've done our Aboriginal Numeracy Gala Day that I was talking about earlier, that came about because chance meeting with a guy called Nick Riley in education, ironically another English guy, loves sport, loves. He thinks he's quite, if he watches this, he thinks he's quite funny, but I can assure him he's not.
The English humour.
Oh, the English humour. He's from the north of England as well, so we've got that in common. But suddenly, we meet. You've got a love of sport. I've got my links from my time at the Newcastle Knights and got good opportunities there. We ironically ran it down at New South Wales Rugby League as well. We did it down there originally in its first instance with 2 primary schools from around the Concord area. But it was that collaboration of Nick from education, myself from sport, my links into sport and environment, Nick's links into education, curriculum, making sure the questions that we then set were at the right level depending on the age group that came in. And we went from there. Oh, how could I forget this? Gosh, off the back of that, but through that collaboration, Nick and myself, we were requested by the Department of Education from New South Wales to develop a movement competency assessment tool. So it's best start that I can send you the paper. It's been peer reviewed now and so forth. It was an alternative to the test of gross motor development. A playground. We went for a playground-based initiative that was a bit more, not user-friendly, but more time-efficient and would allow use within applied and active lessons as opposed to just being an assessment tool. So we developed this best start assessment tool over the last 3.5 years now, 4 years.
Wow.
And that again came through that collaboration of movement from my side, education and learning from Nick's, that school landscape, my background then around almost scaffolding exercise off the back of that is how he then structured the work. And again, it works. And it's that genuine collaboration. You'd never have come up with that on your own. It needed both to authentically contribute to bring it to fruition.
Oh, that's exciting.
That's good. It was great. I mean, every time we've run that in schools or we've assessed children with that, and then the school's been able to then do genuine applied within the circuit. There's 14 elements around stability, locomotor skills, object control. Around that circuit, there are applied questions that link into a curriculum of lessons that we've developed that the teachers can then run, so they can assess the kids. They can do the English questions if they want, or they can do the maths questions, and then 5-6 weeks later they can reassess them again, and they can look at how the children have developed their movement skills within an authentic playground environment that's been driven, well, one by the assessment, but then by the actual applied maths or English lessons that they did.
That's fantastic.
That's a long way from Barclays Bank.
I was going to say, but I think like you said, and I'll bring it back to, how many skills looking back you developed there of that ability to manage change and communicate. And I often get frustrated with some of our colleagues that, discourage students from working in hospitality or working in, yes, it's good to get involved in the industry too, but you can deal with people at a bar. You are golden.
Yep.
You're
Yep.
going to be
Yep.
fine in the gym space
Yep.
from communications. All right, I'm conscious of your time. So one last question. When you kind of, I guess, see students start to transition from that placement student to that graduate ready,
Yep.
what's often, the biggest area or areas of change that you've really seen?
The
Like,
ones that
what are those
the ones
things where
that
you're like, you're going to be fine? Or
I think
I'll put my name as a reference.
I think it's the proactiveness
Hmm.
that you see in a student, their ability to communicate, and their ability to come up with a realistic exercise plan, or just a realistic plan for where they are.
Hmm.
And I say it thinking of, again, Jen, I can't believe it. Not everybody can go and squat 160 kg back squat. Maybe that's not your go-to exercise. So those students, who can come up with plans that are appropriate for who they're linked with
Hmm.
and where that person wants to go, you can just see straight away that they've got that fluidity to adapt and amend depending on the scenario. And a bit like your bedroom sort of setting, if they've only got the bed and the chair, the good students are the ones that instantaneously they've come up with a solution.
Hmm.
The ones that don't go so well are the ones that are still trying to do a back squat in the bedroom where there's no squat.
Just pick up your chair.
Yeah. So they're the key ones. And we've had a
Hmm.
number of students now who have picked up roles, either full-time, part-time, or casual, off the back of their third-year placements, like a growing number, which has been so good to see. You're thrilled for the students because you genuinely want them to do well.
Hmm.
But it's the ones that have been picked up are the ones that have been, like I said, they've been proactive, good communication skills, but they've been realistic in their interactions with the environments they've been in.
Hmm.
Does that
I
make
think
sense?
yeah, and I think it's such a good point because I find too you've got the students that look at that situation and just, no, I can't do it. And then the ones that come back the next week and have spent an hour in their bedroom every single day with that chair and with that bed trying to come up with 6 different exercise ideas. Like, even if it's not on the spot, you're able to develop that.
Yep.
That critical thinking is go and practice, go and put yourself through this. If you've written your workout program and you calculate and there's 100 squats in there, which I see so many times.
Yep.
It's not fun.
I know it doesn't directly link to this, but there was work done by Professor Dave Collins around the Rocky Road sort of principle. And you don't want to have this neat, smooth, and it's more, that one's more around athlete development, but it rings true for here. You don't want this neat, smooth path. You want the knocks, the bumps along the way, because you want to put yourself in not awkward situations, but in situations that are a challenge for you, in situations where it might be under-resourced, because that is where you learn and that's where you get better and that's how you develop. And like I said to you when we started, and Billy, you won't believe me when I'm saying this next piece, I hate standing in front of groups and I hate speaking in public.
There you go. Not throwing you to.
But my point, I said to the students, I said, but the periods of times, if I used to stand in front of, I don't know, the players at Durham or the players at Wakefield, or when I was, I forgot England Rugby League as well, when I was working with the Burgess boys and so forth, or when I was Newcastle Knights or the Origin boys, if you can't stand in front and objectively say what you're doing and why, and say it in a way that is genuine and they're all in, if you stand there and you're really timid and I'm not sure what we're going to do today, you'll get eaten alive. But for that period of time when you step on the stage almost in front of a group, you've got to be sometimes something that you're not normally. And that's the same when we're chatting now. And likewise, if I have to stand in front of a group to do a huge lecture or present at a conference, that's the last thing on my mind. But I know when I do, for that period of time, I can step out and be Colin version 2 and not Colin who's a little bit
conference Colin.
yeah, just he likes his own space and that's him. He's quite happy with that. you've sometimes got to be something that you're not, if that
Mm.
in a nice way.
Yeah, it's such a good. I remember my first conference presentation, and I teach yoga and spin class, and my supervisor would always just spin class you.
Yeah,
Right now you're yoga you. This is
yeah, it's the same. It's yeah.
Oh,
And it's last one, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, to say the wrong thing, or to not say something, or that's absolutely fine, because again, that's how you learn.
yeah.
And there seems to be this idea or ideology in students' minds at times, it's got to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect all the time. If you make a mistake, but you've justified why you've made the mistake, hey, fine.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, it's okay to have to, especially in this industry, like I trial and error everything. Like very rarely will you maybe get it right, but like you said, what's the outcome you're going for? What's that why? Then you'll fill in that in between, and
Yep.
rely on others if you need to as well.
But ask others. There are always better people placed than you to answer questions, and ask them. And sometimes they might say no, and you might be worried behind your back. They go, "No, I shouldn't be asking me that." I don't care. I'd rather ask and find out than not. And that's, I don't know if that's years in sport where you develop a bit of a thick skin. I think that's probably part of it. Where I know I just don't mind. I'd rather ask a question, than not.
I love when they fix my exercise form. Like, oh, thank you. Perfect. Oh, well, thank you so much for that. I'll send
I
a
hope it's
YouTube
useful.
link.
Oh God. I think we've covered a fair bit.
No, it was fantastic, and what a fun adventure. We got to Australia 1 month apart, actually.
Really?
I got here October 2021.
2021. I was 2011.
2011, sorry.
All right.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah, you've been here longer than you thought.
So, and I was in the UK before that. So.
I know we've had that conversation. Brighton. God. Yeah. Oh, she's not happy with Brighton.
Brighton was great. Eastbourne was not.
Yeah. No, I remember that. I remember you saying, yeah.
Oh.
But I've said to students before, there's like, your journey doesn't need to be mapped out. And like mine's a prime example, from Barclays to university, then into sport, and then UK, and then over to Australia. And it doesn't need to be all perfectly mapped out. It's you just, sometimes you don't know what opportunities might present or come literally when you're least expecting it. I think, I know I've mentioned a few people as we've been chatting, but authentically linking with mentors or people you respect, or I think that's really important, particularly in sport, because not that you need networks, but it helps. But you just sometimes need a sounding board or a point of reason, someone who gets it, or reality check. And I think developing a network of genuine people who are there for the right reasons, because I think of sport has got some ordinary people in it. But I know the people I've worked with, I've been blessed.
Yeah. Oh, well, that was fabulous. Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Good to chat.
You too.
All right.
Chat to you soon.
All right. You take care, Jenna. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.